So with that, I'd like to introduce Nishant. Nishant, if you can see, yeah, thank you. You can turn off the video and say hi, and you're also on mute.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Am I still on mute? No.
No, so you're now audible. Thank you, Nishant. So Nishant is a very, has a pretty interesting profile. It's very hard to find a chief product officer and a design officer rolled into one. So we have a rock star here who is a CPO and a CDO, design officer of BookMyShow, which is of course not, in fact, it's a household name in this country and presumably outside as well. Before BookMyShow, Nishant was at ClearTrip and Intuit, worked in product management roles. But Nishant, the question that I have first, before we get into the topic, is, and I've been using BookMyShow for many years now. I believe it's been around in this country for about more than a decade, right? And I'm sure more than that. But I've been using it for several years now. Now, when I thought about this, BookMyShow has always been focusing on getting people out to do something, right? Get out of your house, go see a movie, go watch a concert, go to a stand-up comedy, go join that pub event that's happening and all of that, right? And all towards bringing in events, making it easy for people to go and join. Now, in the current context, how are you creating value? Because nobody can go anywhere.
That's a good question, and thank you for your kind introduction. Sure. Up until COVID hit us, our tagline was, we do everything for out-of-home entertainment. That was how we defined our company. Yeah. And we have had a massive pivot, as you can imagine, to drop the outside home. So we actually invested in. Well, let me take a minute to give a little background about BookMyShow.
Sure. Yeah.
BookMyShow as a company does not only do ticketing. We are actually reverse integrated into the entire supply chain, into the entire value chain. We provide ERP systems, inventory management systems to the movie houses. We provide, as we evolved into live events, we started providing ground services. So for IPL and this year in Singapore, for Formula One, we will provide on-ground services. So accreditation, RFIDs based, access to different parts of the venue, turnstiles. So we have food and beverage, actually creating venues, actually sponsoring IPs. So when you two came in here, we actually sponsored the entire production. So we are diversified, although BookMyShow is just one brand that everyone knows. We are in several other businesses.
That's I think is revealing to a lot of people here, at least to me, because most of it, what we see is the consumer side of thing and what we can use. But it's fascinating that you are deeply integrated into the value chain all the way, up to that. Go ahead. Sorry.
What we did is we looked at our strengths. BookMyShow pretty much built this industry. Online ticketing in 99, when this started, booking online tickets was illegal. There were specific laws against it.
Yeah.
Our founders went ahead and worked with regulators, built the industry from scratch. In the process, what happened is we have wonderful relationships, and we were able to. We own artist management agencies. So what we were able to do is feel the pain of the artists who are also not getting their butter right now, and provide at-home entertainment. So now I think it was in the second week after actually the first week itself, we had live from HQ, and the first one was the Kuhad, I forget the first name, Pradeep Kuhad. But we were able to get artists completely locked down in their home to start broadcasting. Prateek Kuhad, thank you, to start broadcasting from their house to yours, right? And then we built several IPs along it. Now we have a full-blown, and this is complete, hats off to the BookMyShow engineering and product and design teams. We have a full-blown live streaming solution. We are entering into providing lesser-known movies also to be streamed through BookMyShow. An interesting trivia: India produces about 4,000 feature films every year. only about 1,500 get a theatrical release. The 2,500 movies never get to see a theater.
Yeah.
Not all of them are really bad, but there are so many reasons why they can't go on. We are providing a platform now to get those movies to the right users.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
In many, many ways, just to keep providing that entertainment to users.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I think, by asking these questions is when we get to know more first-hand perspective of what we see as a simple app on the phone. We take it for granted. And this is where I want to get into asking you and understanding from you. When you think about a digital product, right, what comes to mind? Because many of us may have a different understanding of digital products. To my kid, possibly the plasma television is a digital product, right? But in our context, how do you define what is more and not a digital product, if you will?
Yeah, so I think the easier answer is to say anything that's physical is not digital. So a brick is not digital, although there will be a time when there will be hybrid bricks, which will give out all sorts of information to your house. Yeah. But in my definition, there are three types of products. There are pure digital products. An app running on your phone is a pure digital product.
Yeah.
Then there are hybrid products, which is most of your electronics, which have a lot of digital overlaid in them, but there's also a bunch of hardware that it runs on. But it's connected. It's got it's got wiring. It's got something going on in it. And then there are purely hardware products, or physical products, a house, a rock. That's art, canvases. That's pure physical products.
Yeah, but if you ask, I'm just I'm not trying to contradict you, but a physical product which includes digital elements, is that also you would, in general, it's called a digital, but not in our context necessarily. But how would you look at that? As I said, an iPad today.
Yeah, so to me, the apps that run on an iPad are pure digital. An iPad is an electronic device. It's not truly a digital product. We are living in a world of devices that talk to each other all the time. All of the IoT, all of that would be, in my mind, electronic devices, but they're not purely digital products. To me, a consumer-facing, internet-connected, that's purely digital. I have a bias towards B2C. You would argue that ERPs are also digital products, but that's stretching it. They become enterprise class digital products. There are several ways to
yeah, I think there are two different constituents and are trying to attribute. One, as you said, digital products is typically internet consumer products, and the other enterprise folks would love to call it as B2B SaaS products, right? So which is also digital, but somehow there is this categorization that is happening. But for our discussion, because you come from the background of ClearTrip and even now more recently BookMyShow, I think we could orient our conversation in that context, if you will. Now before we get into this discussion, right, I think where we're going to talk more about products, design, and how they influence and how are they different, I think it's worth taking a quick poll from the audience about what does the current audience look like in terms of their current roles in their work, right? So if we can bring that poll, we'll see what role do they play currently. I'm sure we couldn't expand into many roles, but at least the ones that we're going to focus on right now. That's well, actually, I'm pretty interested and impressed that we have about more than 10% of entrepreneurs here, which is fascinating, and I think a welcome sign, I would say.
And I'm imagining the 40% that are in the other category are aspiring to be one of the three, either product managers, designers, or entrepreneurs. That's a safe assumption to go with.
Possibly, yeah. Now, so let's get into when we say this digital product, and in the context, we're talking about internet consumer product. Can you talk a little bit about what are the characteristics that you see, or even a product manager should start thinking when we say digital consumer product? Because it's easy to say it's a mobile app. Let's build an app. But knowing what BookMyShow is all about, it is a whole value chain, right? So in that context, can you outline a few things, how they are different from the other products?
Absolutely, Sai. I have outlined 5 things to be precise.
Awesome. Yeah.
I do want to preface, though, that there are certain things that are going to be common across products. If you're developing a vaccine, or if you're developing a new Tesla car, you're always going to be consumer focused, right? So you're always going to be user backed. You're always going to do certain things. You'll always have a business model in mind. You're always going to do a certain amount of user research, usability. All of that is always going to be there. So that's, if you will, a horizontal across all products, and it has been since time immemorial, since whenever products have been made.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the nuanced differences that define that every product manager and designer for digital products should keep in mind. That are specific and to digital products, and that are not as relevant to other products. So, as we go through these 5, I will call out, some of the stark differences between the two. So
Absolutely.
the first one that comes to my mind is that all digital products are almost always connected. They are never standalone. There was a time when you would have software, which was could be called digital products, but that was dumb, that used to just sit on a device and only run there. But now that boundary has almost completely been obliterated. Either it's to get updates, or it's to provide feedback data or logging data. Some way or the other, every digital product is connected. And thinking about use cases. So now I'm talking about what a product manager should be careful about, or what a designer should think about when designing a digital product in the context of being connected, is that use cases are not limited to just what are the sunny scenarios that you're building for. It's because it's going to be connected. There are going to be outliers, whether it's a poor Wi-Fi, no internet connection, viruses.
Could you give an example to illustrate the point, just to bring in clarity around? I think you started talking about Wi-Fi, but what aspect of that should the product manager consider? For example, a simple use case or so.
Right. So because you're going to be connected, I mean, there are several examples. Let me just talk about a few, right?
Yeah.
Everyone started thinking about data. But are you truly, I mean, there are very few products that are truly safeguarding the data of the user, because the product is always going to be connected and the data is going back and forth. Now, so many apps have screwed up on that, that now regulations are forcing it down on us, right? And I'm sure India is going to come up with something soon.
Our own version of it,
Yeah. So as a product manager, and especially as a product manager that's thinking ahead, when you're defining your V1, when you're defining your MVP, thinking about how data will be managed, how will a user have access to his or her data, how will user be able to delete it, prevent it from being shared beyond a certain category. Those use cases often don't come in the initial thinking of a product manager or a designer. And that's a clear example of what people should be thinking about now. This is not superficial. This is not something that will happen eventually. It has to happen at V1. It has to happen at MVP.
Yeah. No, because that's so integral to the value that you're creating. If you're saying that, don't make it as an afterthought. Yes. It has to be, people used to say, and we still say, security is not an afterthought. But now the elements that you're outlining for digital products have to be baked in right from the beginning, right from inception, and even understanding the problem, solving the problem's point of view.
And it goes on. Maybe I'll just talk about a second example as well.
Yeah.
Product managers and designers often think about their primary use cases. my product is to book a ticket. Therefore, I will think about all the ways that a user wants to book a ticket and make a payment and get the confirmation. But because of the connected nature of products, there is so much more that happens. There are secondary and tertiary use cases. I will book a movie, but I will also want to share it. And then somebody will comment on the fact that I shared it. Am I thinking about how my product is looking when in the secondary use case, it's being discussed on Facebook or on some social media, or in the tertiary use case, it's being used to commit a crime or a fraud? You have to think about
that's a great experience.
The data that's going out from my product and how are other products engaging with mine. And that's not straightforward, but thinking about it is essential for designers as well as product managers.
So while we say that you should do this, you should take this approach and it's important to think, are there any tips or are there any specific areas one needs to learn or acquire from a skill perspective? Or is it most about the mindset here rather than any specific considerations on skills?
No, it's both. It's yes, we don't have time to go into details of all of it. But there are tools, and in the past there used to be a Microsoft tool called threat modeling. I think it's a product now that a lot of companies use. Using a threat
Sleepy.
Okay,
fresh up. Go brush your teeth.
Can you guys
drink water?
Folks, can you mute everybody else who's not a co-host? Sorry about that, Nishant.
No worries. Brushing is important.
Yeah, I hope the person is listening. Yeah, go ahead.
So using, you can devise your own tools, right? What is the data that's going out? The security levels, the privacy levels, the impact on the ecosystem in which your app is going to work. So the connected nature of the app, I want to, or digital product. So thinking about that and thinking, just doing a little brainstorming exercise with other fellow product managers and designers on how is it going to go beyond the primary use cases. Because the product manager will list down the 15 main stories, the 3 more main epics, and they get so focused on going live with that and not thinking about outside. You don't have to kill yourself over it, but having a few intellectual meetings that think about it will get you a better sense about the product. You go through secondary research.
So let me ask you this: what's the stuff that's behind you? Are those epics and stories, or is that as a designer now you mapped out a user journey? You can see lots of post-its behind.
I guess.
Right? Good. So in the connected, so one important aspect, characteristic of a digital product is that it's connected. So there are considerations there. Are there any design considerations to think about, especially for the designers in the audience, and you bringing that perspective as well would be useful?
Yeah. So how will your product look? So let me give a simple example, right? Almost all digital products have some ability to share.
Yeah.
It on a mobile phone, it will invoke all the apps that you have through which you can share, whether it's AirDrop or WhatsApp or whatever. How many designers actually think about what the experience is once the user receives it on that platform? If I share it with Telegram, what will my product look like when it is shared on Telegram? So this is again thinking it beyond the primary use case. What will the logo look like? What will be the font? Can it even be enforced? Can I use an image so that my font and my brand guidelines are actually getting enforced? What is the call to action over there? Will there be a reverse linking? So think for designers to actually really embody those journeys and understand every step of the way in the secondary and tertiary use cases. That would be very important.
That's a brilliant example. I think, many people may pay attention to how can I make the sharing part intuitive, which by the way, we don't need to do that. Most of the platforms themselves are making that possible. But then how does it look like on the other side when you have shared is a very important design consideration. Just an example of that. Awesome. So can we talk about the second, ways that digital product is different?
Yeah. So, what I loosely call is digital products are almost infinitely personalizable, right? Sometimes frustratingly personalizable. There's too many options. So in the good old days, when you bought a belt, you bought a belt. If you became, if your waistline expanded too much, there was a point after which your belt will not fit.
Good opportunity to buy a new one. Yeah.
Yes. But you don't have, at least in the past, didn't have belts that could automatically expand and contract your waistline. I mean, your products, physical products, have a very small ability to get personalized. And once they are personalized, when you go and buy a tailored suit, it's it, that's done. It doesn't suddenly change to adapt to your body. When a lady buys a dress, it's a dress that size. If she becomes pregnant in 9 months, the dress is not going to suddenly get personalized for you. But digital products are very different. We have so many tool sets, and with the havoc that AI and ML is throwing on, the power that it's putting in the hands of PMs and designers is having a pretty bad impact, if not really thought through, on the end user, because things are constantly getting personalized. So the point is, you have the power as a product manager and designer to work with your data scientists and your data engineers to completely push personalization. So digital products can be personalized and should be personalized, but a product manager needs to be careful in defining the level of personalization. Just because something can be personalized doesn't mean that it needs to be personalized. Again, back to basics. You have to be customer backed. What level of personalization do I really need? I mean, if you're only going to show me the news feed that I'm totally only ever interested in, how will I ever know what's going on in other people's minds and in the world? So finding that mix between personalizing it to making it easy for me versus making it so personalized that it's isolating.
So it's a very tricky balance is what he's saying. And you need to be cognizant of not going overboard, thus creating, hyper personalization, I believe some people call it, versus not giving enough control to the user. Now, so if you look at the typical way how product managers would think about this, there are multiple options, right? One is you do user research. You understand the behaviors of the users and segment them or profile them into different personas and say, these are the set of people that we could go ahead and provide more control. And so one is on the customer research, understanding customer insights and everything. The other thing is, we call this typically hippo view, right? Which is highest paid person's opinion in the room. Now, what I'd like to understand in these parts is from our audience to see when they are, part of building these products, especially in product management roles. I'd like a poll to come up to say, where do they spend most of their time in what type of activities, right? So, because this is always been much advocated that you should spend as much time as possible out there with your users, with your buyers, with your customers. But there's also a view that says that I don't have access to them. So I can only rely on secondary information, right? So I think it seems like that is also reflecting in the results here, which is pretty fascinating. Good. So into most of the folks in product management, it's not a surprise because I think a lot of roles in many companies in product managers are inbound, where the product owner or product manager spends a lot of time with engineering, designers, marketing teams, as opposed to spending more time in the market. I thought it was a useful context to have when we are talking in terms of how do you get to this balance? What information, what approaches do you take to balance this? So in that context, are there any design consideration that we should look at from a personalizability point of view?
Yes, I think from a design perspective, and it's equally for product managers as well. I think at the level of technology that where we are at right now, we are very rule driven in our personalization. most of our apps have not become truly adaptive in personalization. So you define a user and you put them based on certain characteristics, behavioral data, demographic data, whatever data you have about the user. What we typically do is categorize them into segments, most likely to buy blah, 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 whatever segments you have. And then you start to personalize based on the segments. But users evolve. Life circumstances evolve. A college student becomes a first jobber, becomes a family man. You have to make sure that in an ideal world, personalization is adaptive. And a few apps are getting it really well.
Such as?
The biggest example that comes to mind is TikTok. It is a phenomenal app. It's almost evil in its ability to figure out.
I agree.
Really like.
I agree. It's so, I've heard it's so addictive that, it's not about the content. It's about the what they've done inside that application to just keep you glued to it, right? And keep showing that.
And what they have done is they have made the app adaptable. And I would recommend everyone listening in to make sure that they download TikTok and get addicted to it. 1 week of using it, you will be addicted to it. And you will start, it's almost a journey in self-realization. You will realize, no, I'm not kidding. I found out things about myself that I did not want to accept.
Only when you pause and introspect. Otherwise, your time sinking. Yeah.
No. It's because the type of things that it keeps throwing at you also evolves. It reads your mood, what you like to watch in the morning and what you like to watch in the evening. It will show you different things. I don't know what the secret sauce of TikTok is, but the takeaway is personalization needs to be adaptive. And technology is getting there, but our product managers and designers need to be careful that they really don't put data science as something that they go to as a consultant.
A separate siloed thing that we should now think about.
No, it has to be right from the inception. You have to know how are you going to figure out what the user really needs, what the user is doing, and how are you going to adapt. It's not static. It is going to be dynamic. It has your product needs to adapt, and that's the simple part.
So that's absolutely spot on. So in that context, now it would require a product manager or even a designer to have a little bit of understanding of these amazing things that we are talking about in the context of data, right? Machine learning or models or any of those things. To what extent do you think a product manager should know this?
Oh, it's essential. It's product management 101. At Intuit, one of the competencies of a product manager is their ability to work with data. My past work was with Intuit. I think if you Google, there are several courses on data science for product managers. You don't need, product managers and designers don't need to understand the algorithms that are used to spit out the data.
Correct, right.
For instance, I'll give you an example of BookMyShow. Our data scientists have been able to come up with a very evolved predictive model that tells the purchase intent of a user. So if Sai comes to BookMyShow's app 5 times in a month, for each session, our data scientists can tell with about a 75% accuracy, how likely is Sai going to transact in that session? Not about Sai as an individual, but Sai in that session, how likely. Now,
that level of precision.
Yes. So now once product managers started to understand this capability, they had use cases to apply this. So data scientists and the data engineers are going to create these kind of capabilities, and product managers need to know how to apply it. So we apply it to figure out whether to show you an ad that is distracting or whether to show a relevant ad that will get you continuing to transact. Very important. But see, this is maybe maturity level 1. Maturity level 2 or 3 would be when product managers are telling data scientists, I need
this.
And they go back and give you that. So working with, let's start baby steps, right? Product managers should at least understand the capabilities that data science has, and then eventually start to drive their partner teams to give them that information.
Mm-hmm. No, that's I think the most succinct and very clear answer that I've heard. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Let's move on to the third characteristic, or how it is different from a digital product standpoint, if you have.
So again, and this is something that we all face all the time, but digital products are updatable. We all know that. It's so obvious. Your apps keep evolving.
Yeah.
But that can be super frustrating. I have a mattress. It remains a sponge, memory foam mattress all its life. One fine day, because a product manager wants it, it doesn't become a water bed.
Oh, you thank God for that.
Yes, thank God for that.
Yeah.
So the sacred contract between a user and the product that they buy often gets violated because product managers and designers get all these new technology tools to play with.
And weird ideas sometimes. Yep.
Absolutely. So just the fact that digital products are updatable, you have to be careful with how you actually are going to make that product updatable, the impact on the user, the relearning, the type of users that you have. If you are making an update if you're doing a UI refresh, it should be abundantly clear to the user how they're going to benefit from it. If you're going to make me relearn some things, or even just start to look at a different color scheme, make it clear to me why it's in my benefit. If because there's a new CEO in your company and they change their design system, that's not reason enough.
Yeah.
Okay? So the fact
that also non-intrusive way that it is so seamless that you don't have to now wait and see, okay, this is updating, let me go get coffee, right? It should not prevent you from doing what you're doing, and the experience is so. I think many people who use Macs figure this out and know this intuitively, that a system update is happening and you are not interrupted many times, right? So that's an incredible way of doing that.
So just the frequency at which you want to update your product, the frequency, the impact of your updates in terms of the behavior, the relearning that is required, the financial impact. Again, go back to the connected first property, right? There are primary use cases, secondary, tertiary use cases. Updates can wreak havoc. Secondary and tertiary use cases. A product manager, when you're saying you're empathetic towards your user, you have to be empathetic at all users.
All users.
Your product sits in the center, and there are so many other use cases that are running off of it. You have to make sure that you're thinking about all of those and being super, super careful in updating.
So it's a very, very tricky thing, right? On one side, you want to bring in new behaviors or change the paradigm or change the experience that the users are going through, which means an update could completely change. And many apps do that today, right? You update in the evening and suddenly you open at, what is this stuff? Now, Facebook is known to do this several times before they paused or stopped, which also means that you're saying, let's not create, you have to think through first primary, secondary, and tertiary. But, is that even practical to think through all these use cases before making a rapid change? Or is that an incremental approach that you would suggest?
Well, it's certainly not possible, especially if you have a mature product, and a mature product in today's day and time is maybe anything that's more than 2 years old is mature. You can look at several ways in terms of adoption, product lifecycle, where your product is at. But the more mature your product is, the almost exponentially high scrutiny it should have in terms of any design paradigms that it's changing. So if you've trained your users, if you have a design system in place, and they're going to follow a certain paradigm, if you're going to change that, make sure you do a lot more research. Minor additions, it doesn't matter so much. Again, there are no silver bullet answers to this, but having the fact that there is going to be an impact of this update that's way beyond the little feature that you've done, and really being
also unique to digital products is our message that here.
Absolutely.
So for those of you who have been focused on the conversation, just a quick recap on the three things that we covered so far. Then three ways it's different. It's connected, immensely personalizable, and updatable. So what is the fourth one, Nishant?
The fourth one is what should scare most of the product managers. Your products are replaceable. I think our memories are really short, but digital products are so immensely replaceable. And if you make the mistakes of updating your products and annoying your users, they will find something that's not going to.
They won't even blink an eye just to move on to another thing. Yeah.
Digital products, who remembers Orkut and MySpace? And, a few years from now, Facebook will be in the same category, though right now we can't ever even imagine Facebook in that category. So it's just the nature of the beast. Product life cycles are becoming shorter and shorter. More and more disruptive business models keep coming in. So a product manager needs to be, and actually even a designer needs to really, really be aware of the fact that they're not designing for eternity. The product is replaceable.
The shelf life is
small. So you're constantly making that trade-off between how mature and feature-rich it is going to be versus going live. As well as in that poll that you had, the external market research had a low number. Product managers, unless you are in a product that has a monopoly and has no real threat. And I would argue even in that case, there are others who are, you're a bigger target if you're a monopoly. You have to be looking at all the technology trends that are ready to disrupt you, all the different small 2%.
It's all the more important to pay attention because now you're a little more confident and probably even arrogant that some new disruptor is going to come and take that away. So it's even more important to pay attention to market and market research, right?
And what happens is in most established product and design product companies, it's somebody else's job. Product managers and designers who are building the features always think, oh, there's somebody in marketing looking at it, or there's somebody else looking at it. Well, that may be true. You're not really being true to your product if you yourself are not being paranoid enough about how replaceable you are. Because it can come in very fast and it will come. It's like death and taxes, right? It will come. It is a fact that your product will be replaced. How soon and how prepared you are to adapt. That's what's important.
So which means keep watching out for alternatives, keep watching out for replacements in the market, pay attention to the market. And, if you're not equipped to do how to do that, I think it's very important skills to learn, especially in terms of market analysis, competitive analysis. This is not about spreadsheets. This is not about doing that. This is about understanding what your barriers are, if you have enough moats or you need to build more defenses, right? And continuously start doing to do that. Otherwise, the competition can come from an upstart or anybody, right? So that's a very important message. Fine. So there's the fifth one. Let's get to the fifth and important one that you have on the.
So, and this is where this is probably the most difficult one for product managers and designers to really imbibe, which is that all digital products are interdependent. What I mean by that is none of the digital products will exist in a silo. And a lot of factors beyond the product, beyond your company, will impact you. Let me explain. So if I have an app on Android, Google changes Play Store policies about which age level is appropriate for a certain app. It can ban me because I didn't declare the right age. Just an example, right? So there are so many different things. If my app is running on a Huawei device whose OS has been tweaked and it stops to run, again, not my problem, but it is impacting me. If a certain type of 5G, let's say, network is
connectivity, as you said, the first one, it's so digital products are so interdependent connectivity, right? The network, for example.
So the point is the way connected and interdependent are different. So connected is your app works with many other apps and has primary, secondary, tertiary use cases. Interdependent is that it's more humbling because you cannot exist without an ecosystem of other apps and devices.
Right.
So from a product management perspective, tracking those changes And especially for the entrepreneurs on the call, making sure that when you're making your business plan, you're not just thinking about the service or the USP of your app. You're also thinking about the small constellation of other things, devices, technologies, business models.
And the impact that may have on your app, not just what's happening there, right?
So you are interdependent. You are already reliant on all of them to work, to move in cohesion for you to be successful. And if you're not paying attention to how they are evolving, it could again impact you.
Awesome.
So it's the most difficult thing to do, and but
also frustrating sometimes. I think people who build not just mobile apps, but even before applications for different hardware systems know the kind of frustration. But there, the dependency was limited to one or two things. But now you have a whole ecosystem that you are dependent on, and any change in that would impact the experience of your product. So that considerations could be daunting actually to a product manager, right? And a designer too. So I think we are rapidly approaching a time, but before we move, I think no discussion on digital products is complete without bringing in something product managers and even these days designers are getting obsessed with is about metrics, right? So, the moment you start metrics, lots of acronyms, 3-letter and 4-letter acronyms get thrown in, both, CAC, LTV, NPS, ARR, daily active users. I don't want to go the whole thing, but is there a approach, is there a way that you believe that product folks can start thinking and say, of all these metrics that exist here, for my business, for my product, what is the one that I should focus on? Now, there is no single answer to it, but I'm just asking, is there an approach or a framework to do that?
So there are, again, you're absolutely right. There are lots of metrics, and I'll tell you what I follow and what I find the most useful. It's called, and you can Google it. It's called the North Star framework. I find that in some critics call it oversimplifying, but I find it's very unifying. It helps align the entire product group or the entire business unit in one direction. You have to have a key North Star metric. Then you can break it down. So your customer acquisition team will align to the North Star metric, and your initial user experience product managers and designers will make sure that they're aligning, and then they may have their own sub metrics. Same, when your payment team or whatever is your core functionality, all of those teams will align, but they're all aligned in smaller granular levels to the North Star metric. For example, at BookMyShow, again, I'll give you an example of BookMyShow. Our North Star metric is 4 transactions in a year.
Okay.
We know that if I can get you to book 4 times in a year, your stickiness to my product goes through the roof. So instead
and how did you come to that metric? Because similar products, similar services could have taken a different thing, right? Which is a LTV approach, lifetime value. But in your organization, who makes that decision to say this is our North Star metric?
So it's a chicken and egg problem, right? When we are a mature product, so we have a lot of historical data to be able to come up with these kind of predictions. When you are depends upon the life cycle that you're in. If you're an early stage product, maybe acquisition and rate of acquisition is what you're looking for, if that's what's going to help you. So North Star metric has to be a blend of what your business goals are as well as what your product goals are, right? What is the problem that you're solving from a consumer perspective, and how are you planning to monetize it? So both of them can get blended into that North Star metric. And it'll adapt as you go through the life cycle of your product, and as you get people, as your business model matures, as your product features mature, you may choose to adapt your North Star metric from one time to the other. At any given time, the value of a North Star metric is, it's easy to understand, it's easy to articulate, it's easy to rally your teams. So for your quarterly plans, for your yearly plans, it's easy to get designers, product managers, engineers, everyone focusing on one thing. And then breaking it down into sub things. So whether it's, the conversion rate or the engagement time on site or whatever is the metric that you're looking at under the little part that the product account manager individually is owning, as long as it's lining up to that North Star metric, they're all aligned towards the direction.
You're saying there are secondary metrics now that will support your North Star metrics.
So we always ask product managers to prove how your secondary or tertiary metric is actually aligning towards the North Star. That's, a simple answer.
No, that's very clear. I hope many of the audience got that. So let me just take an audience question. There have been, by the way, Nishant, lots of interesting questions on the LinkedIn thread. So I'd request you to take some time later when you can. And in that LinkedIn thread, if you could respond to some of these things, I'm sure people would appreciate that. But let me pick one here, in the interest of time. And I see a lot of the ones, the initial ones are more around, BookMyShow itself, which is many people appreciating the whole value chain that you've explained, where, BMS is playing these days. But the one question is, when we are talking, again, to summarize to folks on the 5 different ways that, Nishant so clearly articulated, it starts with connected, it starts then personalized, personalizable, if you will, updatable, replaceable, and interdependent, right? So these are 5 unique characteristics of digital products. And in that context, Chaitali Patak asks, right, when you're saying that digital products have all these characteristics, are we now talking more about a product experience or providing a lot more than that to the consumer? Because the customer is not looking at this as a product anymore, right? They are looking to do something with it. They are looking to, an experience. In BookMyShow case, I happen to use BookMyShow because I want to get, tickets to the favorite movie that got launched yesterday and go there and watch it with my friends. So when you mix all of these things, the characteristics of digital, it goes beyond, is it going beyond product experience is the question.
The simple answer is yes, it is. But that's why product managers are valued.
Yeah.
And
designers, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. Product managers and designers. I've got into the habit of thinking of them as a unit.
Yes.
My team, product managers.
They're rolled into one. So yeah.
Actually, a lot of the responsibilities, the lines are getting blurred increasingly between product managers and designers. At least in my teams, and I've seen it several other places as well. Yes, to the question, yes, we are going beyond just the product experience because of these factors. A product manager, a designer, or actually an entrepreneur, a business owner has to think about all of this, right? It's no longer about just a simple transaction. If I'm going in the non-digital world and buying a physical thing, if I buy 1 kilogram of atta, that's what it is. The transaction is over. My wheat flour is not going to connect to somebody else. It's not going to update itself into something else. It's a very simple transaction. But the experience that you're talking about is hinged upon so many other factors. As a user, I still only care for the experience. But as a product manager and designer, I have to be aware about the ecosystem in which that experience is working. So yes, you're going beyond that experience, but that's the reality. That's what you have to do.
Yep. No, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Nishant.